Hi, this is Chua and welcome to my channel on body language and face reading analysis. And today's episode is going to be really interesting. Some of my videos are for entertainment and while others are for learning.
Just tried to run as fast as I could. I just thought she's about to die.
60 Minutes Australia carried this story about the number one, the perpetrator. His name is Blake Davis, and this is his girlfriend Hannah Quinn. The deceased, Jett McKee, was killed by a single stroke from a samurai sword inflicted by Blake Davis. So 60 Minutes Australia carried this story and it dragged on for 60 minutes. So I know you would like to get it quick and fast. So this is a 60 seconds rundown on what happened. So Jett McKee, donning a balaclava, visited the homes of this couple, Blake and Hannah, because he had a tip off that they had a lot of money in there. So as he entered the house, he asked for the money and Blake said there is no money. Blake was struck on his left temple by a knuckle duster, but he thought he was shot. And then the perpetrator approached Hannah and asked for the money, and he snatched her hand back. And strangely, Hannah gave chased Jett out of the house into the streets to get her handbag back. So that's a question, why did she chase him? And then he pulled a gun and pointed at her. That's when Blake came to. He was slightly in a daze, but he took his ornamental samurai sword, came out, and as he saw Jett pointing the gun at his girlfriend, he instinctively struck him and Jett died. Now, after that, they ran off and they hid for about 3 days. The question is, when he was put on trial, he was accused of killing Jett, not as a question of self-defense, because eyewitnesses says that there was no gun. They didn't see Jett pointing a gun at Blake, and Blake and Hannah denies and still continues to deny and says that there was a gun.
Do you remember seeing him holding a gun?
On the street, when I got up to them, I have a pretty big blank, but I knew in my heart of hearts the threat was still there. I knew that the gunman and the gun were indivisible.
But contentiously, onlookers on the day tell a different story. How do you explain the fact that witnesses say they didn't see a gun?
They did end up seeing a gun on the ground, but they were 85 metres away. And most people didn't see that I had a sword. People described it as a stick, or people described it as a pole. If you can't make out that someone is holding a sword, you're not going to be able to make out that someone's holding a gun.
So today we are going to look at the body language. We have great clips from the interview that we can actually break down, slow down, and see the micro expressions, and you can have your take on it.
A terrifying thing to have someone have a gun to the person you're in love with and think you're about to watch them.
And first of all, you see them holding hands, and you realize that Hannah's hands over Blake. That's in a way the domineering posture, that the lady's more domineering than the man. And that's what usually body language experts would straight away say, or perhaps not the expert, the body language novice would say that. But for the expert, we will take into consideration the height level and the chairs that they are sitting on. Obviously, Hannah is slightly higher, and it would be very uncomfortable if she was being the less domineering one. Okay, so we're going to move on.
So made another loud whack when he fell down, and he just stayed on the ground.
So what we are going to see and watch out for today are hesitation.
On the street, when I got up to them, I have a
loss of eye contact.
That the man is trying to take my handbag back that I have on my shoulder.
Deep swallowing. And other little unnecessary gestures like face touching or flicking of the hair.
Pull out.
But after a police search of their home, not all was as it seemed.
Numerous small containers containing cannabis.
And this was not a random attack.
I did meet this person at my property once. I believe that's when he would have seen there was a drawer full of money.
So right here, what we are hearing is that they are actually cannabis users, and they are also reselling cannabis, but she blatantly denied that they are drug pushers. Okay, for my face reading friends and fans who are and students who are watching here, you know, one of those things you like to do is to read their faces, okay? And I don't want to go too deep into this today, but I always ask you to have, what's that first impression you have of them, and what's the first countenance? And really, you know, if I see them on the streets, these are not people that I'm afraid of or I'll be suspicious with. They look like nice people, good people, and even throughout the interview, they have never shown any kind of aggression, and they are very docile people. This leads me to think that their drug usage and their drug reselling is something that they only not too long ago recently picked it up for whatever circumstance that they made them desperate or greedy for the money. It is not something that it's not due to extremely bad character, but I think it is something based on the environmental pressures, influence, or opportunities that made them recently, not so long ago, a couple of years or so, or pick up this trait. As the story goes on, you realize that the jury did not believe them, and they don't believe that a gun was pointing at them. So right now, we wanted to see the interview. You need to take into context that this already happened 2.5 years ago at least. And he had a lot of time in this 2.5 period to get the story right before this interview. So you need to take that into context. Usually we prefer if it's hot off the crime scene and we just ask them questions like half an hour or an hour ago after the murder has taken place. It's much easier to read. But now that it's almost 2.5 years ago, you know, they might even start to believe their own stories that they have conjured up. Okay, so that's the difficult part.
Do you remember seeing him holding a gun?
Do you remember seeing him holding a gun? Now, in terms of crime scene analysis or body language analysis, this is exactly the questions that we are looking for. Okay, so for my students, when you want to analyze a crime scene or interrogation, the direct question that you always want to see the reaction to is, did you kill the person? Are you the killer? Were you there? What did you see? Direct question and the instant reaction. So here, Tara.
Do you remember seeing him holding a gun?
On the street, when I got up to them, I have a pretty big blank, but I knew in my heart of hearts the threat was still there. I knew that the gunman and the gun were indivisible.
So here our interviewer asked him, did you see him carrying the gun?
Do you remember seeing him holding a gun?
On the street, when I got up to them,
Okay, now let me rewind that, and I want you to look at Hannah first.
A gun?
On the street, when I got up to them,
Do you immediately notice that she looked down? Okay, so that's a red flag. She immediately looks down. She's doing a self-comforting gesture, okay, rubbing her own hand. She flicks her hair, and she's playing with her last finger, a ring. Again, a self-comforting gesture. So 3 red flags within several seconds. I'm going to play it again, and this time you are going to watch Blake.
Do you remember seeing him holding a gun?
on the street, when I got up to them.
Okay, playing with the fingers, left thumb, slight pressure. Meddling with her thumb, okay? You know why we highlight these gestures? Because, you know, there's this thing called the flight and flight and fight mode when they're under pressure. So in this case, since they are in an interview, they can't fly off, they can't flight off. Okay, so the energy will be built up, the adrenaline will be starting to kick in, so you start to see a lot of unnecessary gestures as a way to dissipate the built up energy.
Hannah, is there any chance that he didn't have a gun?
Any chance he didn't have a gun? No. Sorry, I was a bit taken aback by that question.
Well, you're the closest witness, aren't you? So
Yeah.
what is your response to, people doubting that he in fact had a gun pointed at you in that moment?
Hannah, is there any chance that he might not be having a gun? Okay, this is a very, 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 very good interrogative question, and let's see her reaction.
Hannah, is there any chance that he didn't have a gun?
Any chance he didn't have a gun? No. Sorry, I was a bit taken aback by that question.
Well, you're the closest witness, aren't you? So
Yeah.
what is your response to, people doubting that he in fact had a gun pointed at you in that moment?
It hurts, I suppose, because indirectly I'm sort of being told that, like, I could be fabricating that or something, but that gun was very real.
You saw her being a bit confrontational when she protruded her head forward.
Any chance he didn't have a gun?
No. Could be very good acting. Seriously. If you ask me, I mean, it's not incriminating, but if you ask me, I say 60% acting.
Response to, people doubting that.
Okay, so a few things that you may have noticed, that she continues to be very stressed when she was recalling the incident or making up the incident. And also, if we slow down the footage, you might notice these two micro expressions. Okay, so those are all red flags. If you want to watch this video and you watch it all again, it's really not going too good for Hannah and Blake, because if you ask me, I have my suspicion. If you watch it for the first time, 60 Minutes is very, very smart in the way they script the program. So from the start, you're on the side of Blake and Hannah, and as the program goes on, they start sharing with you new evidence that they didn't share from the start. Okay, so these are the things that I want to talk about. Later on in the program, they shared with us that after they struck Jett, they had about $16,000 to $20,000 with them, cash. They ran off. They didn't report it to the police. In fact, they went into hiding for 3 or 4 days. Then the police came, raided their house, found all kinds of narcotics and even some money. Eventually, they were apprehended, and they were found to be not only drug users but also reselling drugs. Okay, so that part they didn't tell at first, but they did share. Hannah did share that Jett, when he came in, he says, "I know you have money, and give me the money, because if you don't, there are other people who knows where you're staying, and they will come here and they will kill you."
Around, like, just waving it around. He said that if we don't give him the money that he wants, that he would shoot us. He told us that there were more people that knew where we lived. Essentially, if we didn't comply, that he would hurt us or they would come after us.
Did you believe him?
Yeah.
It was a malicious threat of, I'm going to kill you, people will kill your families, we know where your family lives.
Based on that evidence, Hannah and Blake decided to take their money and run off and goes into hiding. So now if you take that into consideration, into that context, then They are not running from the police. They are scared for their life, because if they are involved in narcotics and in the underworld trade, and it's like a turf war, then they are more afraid of the competitors or the other mafias to come and kill them. If that is proved to be correct, then they would instinctively think that Jett was not an ordinary thief, but a hitman, or they were very targeted by the enemies. So in that case, if Jett was on the ground, the rage towards that person would have been greater than a total stranger who just come in, a normal robbery or a petty theft. So in this case, he might have used the samurai sword to annihilate Jett. And of course, Jett died and took the S-Pop room temperature challenge. He died. Okay, I'm sorry for Jett. So with all that evidence, what do you think? Do you think the jury got it right?
Consistent with the jury verdict, I'm not satisfied that Mr. McKee was pointing a gun at Miss Quinn.
Or Hannah and Davis are innocent. Can I just share one more thing with you? And this is really interesting. Look at these footages. Each time Hannah and Blake goes for their court hearing, they wear lighter colors, because dark colors shows authority, shows maybe even defiance, but lighter colors are more relatable, more innocent. So good guys wear white in that case, and they are very aware that if they wear lighter colors, the jury might go easier on them. There was also a little footage of Blake wearing this t-shirt in the tie-dye. He looks a bit effeminate, don't you think so? Who on earth wears tie-dye? So finally, my verdict, I think, my general verdict is this. Hannah and Blake, they are both very unfortunate to be involved in such a activity. Circumstance forced him to strike Jett really hard. His judgment was also affected by the blow on the head. After being slugged on the head and almost half concussed, you can't really think straight. And even if the response didn't warrant a samurai strike on Jett, I don't know if the jury could be a bit more empathetic in that case. I think they already did, or else he would be charged for murder. So I think the jury and the judge got it right.